What if everything you've been told to do, to fit in, perform, prove yourself, wasn't actually the thing you needed to do to get in? In this episode, I challenge the idea that success comes from doing it right and talk about what it really means to be seen and why that might matter more than we want to admit. Hi, I'm Dr. Theresa Haskins, and welcome to Think Differently, the podcast that challenges the status quo and explores the power of neurodiversity to create a more inclusive and accessible world. Together, we will talk about everything from the value of different perspectives to the limitless potential of human beings. We'll explore how embracing differences can lead to endless possibilities and how you can maximize strengths to make a positive impact on the world. So sit back, relax, and join me as we get ready to think differently. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Think Differently. I've been sitting with something lately, and it's one of those realizations that doesn't come all at once. It kind of built over time, and then one day realized you've been seeing the same pattern over and over again, and you really can't ignore it anymore. And I'll be honest, I don't know if I like what the pattern I'm seeing suggests. For a long time, I focused my work on building better paths, making things clearer, more accessible, more navigable for neurodivergent people who don't naturally fit the way systems are designed. And that's been a consistent thread in everything I do, whether it's in organizations, schools, or even how I think about opportunity more broadly. And the idea is simple, at least on the surface. If we create the right structures, if we can remove unnecessary barriers, if we can make expectations more transparent, then people who are capable but might be overlooked due to communication differences or just different ways of presenting, they can move forward without having to fight quite so hard to get through the gates and the doors. And I still believe in that. I really do. But what I've been noticing and what I can't quite reconcile is that when I look at the moments that actually change things, for me, for my family, for people I know, the moments that created real movement, real change, desired opportunity, they didn't come from any path, old or new. So I keep coming back to this image in my head. It's like there are these doors inside these systems, and none of them have handles on the outside. So you can do everything right. You can follow every step, apply, wait, try again, but you can't, as the individual, open the door yourself. The only way that door opens is if someone on the inside decides to open it for you. And that only happens if they know you're there. And so maybe you're pounding on the door. That's the traditional system, right? You knock, you wait, you try to convince someone to let you in. But I just keep seeing the same thing happen. Someone's struggling or stuck or just trying to get through something that doesn't quite fit them. And then, almost out of nowhere, a gatekeeper looks through that peephole and says, wait a second, I see something here. And then everything changes. Not because anything fundamentally changed about the person knocking on the door, and not because they suddenly became more capable or skilled, but because they were finally seen by somebody who had influence and power. And that's the part that I find a little bit hard to sit with. They weren't seen because they knocked. They were seen because someone happened to look and pay attention. And once that happens, doors start to open that weren't even visible before. And so this is where it starts to get uncomfortable for me, because that's not something you can plan for. You can't map it. I can't teach it in a course, except maybe say to leaders, you have to actually look differently and pay attention to what's around you and not wait for the perfect knock. And I can't teach it to the individual, reduce it down to here's how you get selected, because it just doesn't follow the rules we tell people to follow. The change, the moment, the door opens through conversations and proximity. It happens when someone has enough exposure to you to think of your name, even when you're not in the room. And at the same time, I've been thinking about something else. I was reading an article recently about ADHD, how often it's dismissed as something mild, something manageable, something people can just work through. But the research is starting to show something very different. That over time, the trying has this cumulative impact, which creates stress and strain and a constant effort to regulate and adapt and keep up, and it's actually having significant consequences, even on overall life expectancy. And I sat with that for a minute because it made me think, what does it actually cost to spend your entire life trying to fit into systems that were never designed for you? Because when I think about my own experience, how hard I've pushed and fought and climbed, and how much I've adapted and learned to speak and acculturate to fit the room, to read the room and adjust, that hasn't been a neutral effort. It actually takes tremendous effort, energy, and this constant level of awareness that never really shuts off. Not if I'm going to appear normal in every situation. And even with all of that, to dress right, talk right, to not say too much but not say too little, to make the right amount of eye contact. It's never quite right. It's too much. It's not enough. And no matter the credentials, no matter the skills, no matter the experience. And so then I think about that experience in contrast to my children and how authentic they are and how they show up everywhere to everyone. Sometimes I tell people they couldn't mask if they wanted to. Maybe they could, but I've never asked them to. I didn't put them in environments where they had to acculturate to fit. They've never been made to feel like they were less than for being exactly who they are. And when I knew systems would be a blocker for them, I advocated behind the scenes, and I found people who would see them for who they are. So their first moments weren't about proving themselves, but just being themselves. They still had to do the work, but they didn't have to pretend. And what's crazy is it's working for them. They're not navigating systems the way I did and many others talk about masking to get through. Honestly, they're not even really navigating at all. They're just walking in the room and being seen by the right people at the right time in the right context. And those people, they're opening doors for them, talking about them when they're not in the room, creating opportunities that weren't even visible before. Actually, my oldest son was offered a job the other day. He didn't pursue it. Someone just reached out and asked him. And what I love about the story is instead of jumping on the offer like most people would, he told the person he'd take it under consideration. That was his honest answer. And what's interesting is that answer, what most people would think is risky, is exactly what made them want him more. Because they know he's not performing. He's just being real. And I find myself sitting in that contrast because part of me looks at them and thinks, this is what I wanted. This is what I fought for. And another part of me is asking a much harder question. What if I had done that? What if you've done that? What if we were less filtered, less focused on fitting in? Would it have worked? Or would we have been shut out completely? Because I don't think our systems are neutral in this. I think they reward a certain kind of participation, a certain kind of communication, a certain kind of presentation. And for people who don't naturally align with that, the message always felt pretty clear to me. Adapt or you don't get in. And yet, what I'm seeing now is that when someone is allowed to be fully and authentically themselves, and someone else gets to see it and recognize it, the path changes. Not because the system worked, but because someone stepped outside of it. So I'm left with this question, and I don't have a clean answer. Is it better learn how to navigate systems as they are, even if it means shaping yourself to fit? Because that's what we coach most children and adults to do. Or is it better to stay fully yourself and hope that the right people see you at the right time? Because I've lived one version of that, and I'm watching another version play out right in front of me. and they're not leading to the same experience. And maybe the harder question is, should we be asking people to fit these systems at all? Or should we be building environments where they don't have to? Because the wins people see, they're real, but they're not telling the whole story. And if no one opens the door, some of the most capable people out there will never even get the chance to walk through it. Thank you for listening to this episode of Think Differently. I hope you found our discussion today insightful and thought-provoking. I want to thank AudioWorks Studios for their exceptional production and recording support. Without their expertise and dedication, this podcast would not be possible. If you enjoyed this episode, we encourage you to share it with others. Your support helps us to reach new audiences and promote neurodiversity in our world. Also, be sure to subscribe to this podcast on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite platform so that you can stay up to date on the latest episodes. We look forward to seeing you again soon on Think Differently.